Is this thing on? What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Sunday. We are doing a little data logging on Little Miss Revlon. That is right, 309 gear is in the car. And so, what are the impressions so far? Well, so far, so good. Cannot complain about the drivability whatsoever. It's basically the same as stock. In fact, so much so that you really don't notice the gear. A lot of the questions that guys have had up to this point were, is it going to be too rowdy with the gear? Is it going to be too this or that or what have you? And it absolutely is not. As a matter of fact, it's doing pretty good. T's in the house. What up, brother? I like it. Awesome Instagram post, by the way. Freaking love it. If you don't, oh wait, no, that wasn't yours. But anyway, got you mixed up with somebody else. But anyway, awesome. Forget it. It's hysterical. I'll have to send that over to you. You'll get it right away. So anyway, getting back to it. So Mark Corleone's in the house, the arm flex. I love it. So what are we up to? So getting back to it, the driving impressions of the gear, it's stock. I mean, it's a stock gear. It doesn't act any differently than any other stock gear you would imagine under partial throttle. In fact, so much so, it's a little bit numb, if I'm being honest. You don't get that elastic band effect that you do with that 262. Where you do feel it, though, is when you do tip into it pretty hard. That's really where the gear wakes up the car quite a bit, and you start to get a little bit more of that push that you're looking for. But leading up to that, the car is just basically going through the gears. Again, it's pretty laid back, pretty sedate. So, other impressions. One, the downshifts with a stock downshift profile in the Tune are aggressive, and it makes it kind of nice. It's not exactly the same, but it's somewhat similar to how the Mustangs have their transmission tuned on downshift. So, not quite that aggressive, but still significantly more aggressive, which is kind of fun. You get a nice burble and a crack out of it coming up to a stop. If you can hear that, hang on. There we go. So, but my main concern has been, there's two things. First main concern has been actual drivability of the gear under wide open throttle and under partial throttle. Partial throttle is a wrap. There's really not much I'm going to do to change anything in that respect. I may kick up the partial throttle shift points just a little bit, but it's all still dealing with output shaft RPM. So, the car doesn't really feel any different because it's still shifting at those same points RPM wise. Now, that being said, wide open throttle. So when I did the transmission tune, I put in provisions in the tune for the gear with the idea that it was going to need some additional headroom for in terms of rev limits for shifting properly. So in saying that, I hit the nail on the head with that almost a little too good, because I had thrown a little bit more RPM at some of the shift points, anticipating a little bit earlier shift based on acceleration rate. Well, so it's definitely got that taken care of in terms of shift points. But as far as where it's shifting, I'm actually having to lower shift points a little bit on my 3-4 and on my 4-5 shift. There's some crazy person up here. I don't know what this guy is doing. What the hell? Anyway, so what am I doing right now? Well, basically what I'm doing now is I'm running the car through the gears, data logging right now. We're going to get it up to about 65. That was a little bit faster than 65. Get it pointed straight. We're going to go ahead and go to watt, check shift points. Close the data stream. A little bit longer on that 4.5 or the 5.6 rather than I would have liked. Shifting at about 64 odd thousand RPM on that high end. I'd like to shift a little bit lower than that, but that'll give you kind of an idea of how how quickly she'll get through the gears. So far, driving impressions, love the gear. Again, it's not near as aggressive as you might think that it would be. It's actually less aggressive under partial throttle. And where it really shines is in fourth gear and in fifth gear. That's really where you feel the push of that 309. The car's already really strong down low. Whether you've got the 262 or what, it doesn't really matter. The gear ratios are still very aggressive in the transmission. It's really in that fourth gear and fifth gear where you need that extra gear multiplication to help you get rolling. That's really where the big timeout. Gotta be good here. Have a friendly public servant. I need to make sure. Okay. Anyway, that's really where you feel the real hit of that 309 gears in the later gears. You're really not going to feel it down low. One other thing that I'm looking out for, though, and this is for you guys with aftermarket drive shafts, if you're thinking about putting a 309 gear in your car, I'm gonna say if you've got any hint of vibration with your existing drive shaft, hang on. This thing partial throttles a freaking riot. Anyway, sorry. So sorry. Getting back to it. So that's the car at about 40% throttle, not quite half, and it's just. I'm on my drag pack too, by the way. This thing keeps turning. I don't know what's up with that. Oh, it's because it's falling off. I'm on my drag pack right now, and I mean it's hazing the hell out of the tires. Time out. Let me get this thing fixed. Which makes it a lot of fun. And it's 100 degrees outside, so my mount keeps trying to fall off of here. Hang on. There we go. Hopefully that fixes that. But that's really where the car is a lot of fun, is at about that half throttle mark, where you're definitely getting the car into boost. That's where the car really wakes up. The other thing that I like about it, and a lot of folks have asked too, is, well, what about fuel economy? Is the 309 gear going to affect fuel economy at all? Well, not really. In fact, if you drive your car around in sport a lot, you'll actually be running in 8th gear, whereas before you really weren't. And to give you guys an idea, I'm cruising along at 78 miles an hour, 22, 23 miles per gallon, 24, kind of waffling back and forth in there. So, you know, if I drop the thing down to, let's say 65, 70, somewhere around in here, let's see, let this thing equalize a little bit. Yeah, 24-ish, 23 miles per gallon. So it's not affecting fuel economy in any real way. But again, I think a lot of that has to do with how it. Damn, they're everywhere today. I think that has more to do with the fact that it's just utilizing 8th gear. I mainly drive the car in sport. Now, that being said, getting back to my point, driveline vibration. So this car had a little bit of a vibration before. Kind of mitigated now by having the drag pack on here, but you know, buzzing along here at a fairly significant speed. Yeah, it's not bad. So if you've got a significantly, if you're living with a slight vibration at with your worse by putting a 309 in the car. So just keep that in the back of your mind coming into this. But and the car, the thing about the gear, it just effortlessly cruises. If you can hear that slide right now, I mean, you wouldn't normally cruise at this speed anyway. So at any rate, we're gonna. You can love the downshifts with this 309 gear, by the way. Hang on, we're gonna do a real quick. Oh yeah, give you guys an idea as far as how the car gets out from a dig. Too much wheel spin, kind of hiccuped a little bit on that 3/4 shift. But yeah, it's stout to say the least. That's, you know, rolling into it wide open in second, it'll you start hazing the tires. So let me do this. Let me do that again for you guys. Bear with me. Get a new good data log started. Power stop pads working like a charm. Load it up slightly, get into it. We'll just stop the data log there. So the car accelerates briskly and has ample passing power, no doubt about it. Data on that looks good. One other thing is, you know, what in terms of, you know, on the street, 0 to 60 times, stuff like that, is there any significant difference because of the lack of traction? And really, not really. There's a slight difference, but it's not that bad in terms of getting the car to hook up, and it gathers itself better once the car is underway. So I'll typically just light foot it coming into the throttle in the first gear. Second gear, I'll start to run into it a little bit harder and go from there. But that pass, based on data, didn't even get wide open until about halfway through second. And on the here in Mexico, anyway, 11.4 at 129 on the street with a slow 0 to 60 of 3.8 seconds. So, and an eighth mile of 102 miles an hour. So that will give you an idea as far as you know, what the car's acting like. You know, but yeah, aside from that, highly recommended. But again, you just got to understand what you're up against when you're putting one of these gears in. One other thing I also want to throw y'all's way as well. Don't forget when you get the rear end, put fluid in the rear end, or if it comes with fluid, you get the car on level ground, check your fill, and make sure that you didn't, you know, that you don't have an overfill situation with your diff. That can cause an extra vibration, and I'm thinking that's kind of what had happened with mine, is that diff was slightly overfilled, and you know, could have potentially created an issue there. But enough about me yammering. Let's get in and say hi to anybody that's checked in with us yet. Already got Corleone and B5B. Say what up, B Mason. Got the 2 thumbs up and the arm flex. Man, I like it. Get this thing pulled over so I can answer any other questions if y'all are in. So if you got any questions about this thing, let me know. I'm about to pull over and I'm going to go through the data with you guys as far as where the shift points are now and the changes that I'm going to need to make based on the data. Based on the data, where I'm going to need to put the shift points. And it looks like on that pass, we are looking okay. Let's see. Hang on just a second. God dang, it is muggy and hot down here in Mexico. Let's see. So let's take a look at the data, see where we're at with all of this real quickly. Bear with me. So first, second gear doesn't really count.
New text message from Charlie.
Yeah, it didn't really go watt until right at second gear. So predictive shift really isn't hurting us right now on that 1-2 shift. You've got, I'm going to need to make a little bit of it. Well, I'm going to need to make a change on the 2-3. So 2-3 is going to get a little bit of a tickle. Right now we're sitting at about 60, just 6420-ish, just this side of that. So we need to make that change. Bring that down just a little bit. We're going to make a change to 3-4. Well, let me look and see if it's even necessary. 3-4 looks good. 3-4 is checking in right where I like to see it, right at about 63-ish, just a little bit shy of 63 is okay. We'll get the car on a prepared surface and see if it remains consistent there. The 4.5 actually on that pass, let's see, 4.5 looked good, and then 5.6 just carries out. 5.6 will run out to about 64, 64.50, somewhere right in there. Let me get that pulled up. Let's see, 63, 60, oh, no. Right at 64. So definitely legging it out on the big end on that. In that gear, we're just going to let it stretch out to the end of the track on that one. The car's never going to see anything higher than about 132 miles per hour, so it's okay to just go ahead and let that gear rain out. I'm going to be out of it by then anyway. By the way, with this gear, one thing I do want to bring up is just how good it pulls in fifth gear. It doesn't lay over in fifth gear like the car did before. It just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling, and it feels like you're getting it just feels like you're getting an extra couple of miles an hour on the tail end just from the seat of the pants. So, but anyway, that's kind of the tail of the tape right now. We're gonna go run, make another hit now that the car's got a lot of heat in it. Trying to get the shift points as or get the car as hot as I can. This thing is so much fun. And basically have the car in the heat of the day so that when it comes down to predictive shift algorithm and acceleration rate, I'm making all the changes on a drag pack. So I'm using the same wheel and tire combo that I'm going to have at the drag strip. I'm tuning and testing the car with that setup. The reason why that's important, again, is predictive shift algorithm. If you're running with your street setup, two things. One, it's not going to hook up in the gears where you need it to hook up. And two, typically, if you're running a 305/35, that wheel tire combination is taller. So you're going to have, you're not going to have as good, you're not going to have as good of a representation how the car is really going to be at the track, because since that wheel and tire combination is taller, your predictive shift algorithm is not going to register as quick of an acceleration rate. What that'll do is it will force the shift a little bit later. And so if you've been trying to make adjustments at the track with your trans tune, and then you get out on the street, start playing around with your adjustments on the street, sweet GT500. That guy had to be older than the hills that was driving it. He was leaning on it. So good on you, Gramps. 1314 GT500. Anyway, what's going to happen is your shift points are going to be higher than what you really want them to be. Or technically, if you're doing all this on your street setup, your shift points will end up being too low. They will be higher on your street setup, again, because the predictive shift algorithms kick in and do all the nasty little things that they do. Let's check this thing for vibration. Cruising along at a good speed. It's really not that bad, not that much different. You kick it up a little bit higher. We're going around a corner right now at these speeds. People say these cars don't handle. I'm actually on a drag pack doing this, because I'm smart. Let's see. Go ahead and tip into it a little bit, get her up to speed. Yeah, at about a fairly significant speed. It's got a decent enough vibration, but not too far away from what it was. And again, you got to balance, OE slickability with aftermarket. What are you going to do about it? There's not much you can do. At normal cruising speeds, seems pretty happy. So, at any rate, I wanted to bring you guys this one just to make it fun. So, thanks for the ride along, and that's a wrap. We're going to take this thing back. I'll tell you what, I'll give you guys one more hit with the car just to give you an outro, and that'll be it for this. Let's have a little fun with this thing real quick. And then, let's see. Oh, no questions on tuning. I guess it's a little early though, and it is Sunday, so. Let's get this thing pointed in the right direction. And let's make a little bit of music with this tuning that we're doing. Right off idle. Well, that didn't do us any good. She lit them up sideways. In third gear. It's just too much fun. Anyway, the car's doing great. Anyway, spot's getting hot. That's a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one, and I'm going to try to do a live show here this evening. Get on that one if you can, but time to get the car back and make some changes to the tune, and that'll be a wrap on Little Miss Revlon. Y'all have a great one. Adios.